Hello and welcome back, ladies and gents, boys and girls, to Cup of TCG. My name is Kayo, joining me is the lovely Callum. And we're coming off the back of a pretty damn great weekend. Callum, we went down to Brighton's Dice Saloon, an amazing LGS for their ProQuest. And while we were doing some awesome stuff with the stream, you managed to take the entire event home with the big purple man behind us. You have an affinity for these purple heroes, don't you? What's going on? This time Viserai, last time doing well on Levia. Mate, congratulations. Of course, gold foil and a PTI for Amsterdam, which it's going to be super sick.
Yeah, I like the dark and evil twisted heroes, clearly. But what can I say? I'm a twisted guy.
Inside me are two walls. Give me my angle on my devil. Housekeeping out the way. You got a gold foil. We opened it. If you follow us on Instagram, you already know what this is. If you don't follow us on Instagram, firstly, check the comments, follow us on Instagram. TCG content constantly. Secondly, what gold foil did you get? Oh, it's so good. Master of the Pouncing Links. So with the gold foils from this ProQuest, you can get a common, rare, or majestic. And I think Callum probably hit one of the best ones, especially considering how playable that thing is in the meta for ninjas right now. So really, really great.
Not a ninja player myself. I won't be seeing play myself, but I'm sure it will find a home in someone's blinged out Katsu deck.
At some point. There we go. I might start playing Katsu. I need to borrow that one, mate. Cheers. Cool. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be running through Callum's deck list a little bit, just kind of touch into it. And because we are actually live streaming the event from Dice Saloon, again, thank you very much to them, we're going to review one of your Swiss games against a pretty prolific player, Francesco Giorgio, who... you seem to have an amazing time into when you faced him both times over the weekend, but we'll let that game talk for itself. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the deck list. Talk to us about it. What's going on? Equipment first. Anything spicy here? I know there's something which catches my eye.
So, it's pretty much a standard aggressive Reaping Blade sort of variant of Viserai. There's two builds going around at the moment. There's the Nebula Blade one and the Reaping Blade one. Opted for the Reaping Blade build as historically I'm much more familiar with how Viserai used to play with Rosetta Thorn.
Yeah.
So when picking him back up again recently, I thought let's keep in the comfort zone. Went with Reaping Blade. Also think it does some slightly better things than Nebula Blade as far as like the one card hand with a blue, being able to do a rune chant and the sword. Other than that, that's sort of like the top line what the deck is trying to do. Other equipment, got Crown of Providence and Balance in the list, just useful for different matchups. Assassins and Guardians for the Crown of Providence, and then Katsu, Kayo, Levia, those sorts of decks for the Balance. 3 different chess pieces. I opt for Aether Ironweave more often than any other chess piece just because it is the best aggressive chess piece.
Bloody good.
Yeah, it is really good. Tunics for the sort of slower games. I played Tunic into Victor on Saturday, which was the deck I beat in the finals. And Dialect Carapace is kind of only really there for Kano because it has AB2. It does also have Temper 2, so if there's a deck you really, really wanted the block value into, you could play it there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Didn't face a Kano.
Yeah, for real. That's interesting. I didn't consider the fact that, okay, yeah, you do just run this for the AB2. I suppose rest of the list is, AB-less with the exception of Quill Hand, right? So
yeah, so with Carapace and Quill Hand, you get to play AB3 while still keeping Creepers against Kano and even Balance of Justice if you resolve some tomes and stuff like that. And then obviously in the arm slot, you've got Grasp of the Arc Knight, one of the most powerful legendaries in the game.
One of the only Runeblade legendary I've ever pulled. Bloody nice card. It's quite interesting that Runeblade's afforded and your list is afforded so much space in the sideboard for equipment. I mean, you've got like multiple different cosplay options here for the list, which is quite cool.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, one of the big strong points of the aggressive variant at the moment, I feel like, is that you can build like a very, very strong 60 cards and not have to change it very much into a lot of matchups.
Yeah.
There is a little bit in the sideboard, as you'll see, for some decks that really hardcore want to try and fatigue you. But I think if you string together some five card hands well enough and are good at using creepers, I think you can push over those decks all right.
Nice. Let's move on to the actual main board. Again, we won't go super in depth. This is, if you know what a Viserai list looked like, you know what all these cards do. But from someone who hasn't seen Viserai played since, God, what was it, Starvo season probably, when you were playing it all the way back then, whenever Fest released, it's good to see some of like these classics pop up again. I mean, G-Tome I haven't seen since that point, and you playing it, I was like, oh, do I sneak one in if more people try this on Viserai and just in my list?
Well, Gorgtome's actually got like niche a little bit better because there's another constructed deck in the format playing it, which is Kasai. So there is a chance that the Pot of Greed Gorgtome comes up, but yeah, the main board is pretty heavily inspired by the Nathan Crawford list that did really well recently. Shifted a couple of numbers around and the sideboard around for the post-Dromai meta.
RIP.
Yeah, see you later. The main sort of changes I made was I upped the counts of Shrills because I really wanted to bank on the more Shrill sword reliable play that we all know. I think he was playing 3 Tome of the Arc Knight, which I dropped down to up the count of Shrills. But the main thing to note about the deck is it is still a 30-30 split. As you can see, I'm playing 59 cards in the main deck. The one card that comes in is either a Read the Runes or a Rattle Bones, depending on if you go first or second. Historic Viserai players will know this sort of sideboarding plan. It's a tale as old as time.
So if you're going first, what one do you put in? You put the Read in,
Runes.
and then second you put the Rattle Bones in.
So with the Become the Arc Knights, you have, but effectively you can put one Read the Runes in and have 4 copies of the card, because you're very likely, you're still pretty likely to open it in your opening hand, and then you put Rattle Bones if you go second because you can block with a Swarming Gloomveil on turn 0, and when Rattle Bones comes up, it's already got the best target in the deck for it. And it blocks 3. So
and it blocks 3.
You want a 3 block over a 2 block, but that's pretty minor. The thing to note is that they're both non-attack actions, so the deck has 30 attack actions and 29 non-attack actions, and then you up it to the 30-30 split depending on which one of these you put in. That is important because I am still playing Sonata. So there's multiple Sonatas now. I suppose I should probably specify
Arcanics.
Sonata Arcanics, which fell out of favour for a little bit, but yeah, one of the best creepers targets and just a really, really good card.
You were talking about the fact we've got multiple Sonatas now, Sonata Galaxia. Is this the newest released card that you've got in the list? I suppose this was heavy hitters, right?
Probably,
so
yeah,
this is...
Yeah. I think this card's interesting. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I know it's really, really good up in the Turtle Burst, as people call it, or the big setup. Or the big setup OTK versions. Again, I play 2 Runeblood Incantations, which is the only target for Sonata Galaxia in the deck. So it basically is a 3rd copy of this card that can be played for free sometimes, and it's good to have ways to find these cards when you are trying to do a little bit more of a setup plan into decks like Riptide or Teklo, who really want to block you and stop you from pushing your damage through.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any other kind of like standout card from the weekend that you wanted to talk about before we moved into watching your game against Francesco?
So I'm playing 2 Meet and Greet. I don't think 3 is particularly reliable with decks if they know what they're doing against Meet and Greet. But I think 2 is still really good because some people just won't bring AB into you, and then this card becomes really pushed. And the other card that sort of, the 2 cards that stood out over the weekend, Drawn for the Dark Dimension is, honestly, I'll continue to say it. I used to play it about 2 years ago when I played Viserai, but this card is completely busted. So as people know, based on sort of like the cash-in variants of Viserai, the more cards you play, the more damage you do, because Viserai's hero ability scales exponentially on how many Runeblade cards you play. So if I get to draw more cards during my turn, even if the card is doing less damage than something like a Rune Flash or a Shrill, drawing more cards equals higher potential to do more damage. If you draw into a Swarming Gloomveil, if you draw into a Reveling Runeblood, if you draw into anything like a good Arsenal target, like a Mordred Tide, your turns become much more reliable. There's a lot of times that I would finish on a drawn over the weekend rather than swinging the sword, just because it's one more card. I start next turn with a rune chant. I get an arsenal. Yeah, it's really, really, really good.
Helps
and the
that
other
setup.
card I was, yeah, 100%. And it makes creepers plays much easier as well, because you can draw into a card to pitch, or you can try and draw into a non-attack action, which comes up sometimes. The other card that did really well over the weekend was Rune Flash. This card paired with Rebel and Deathly Duet is just completely silly. Like a 0 for 4 go again, which is actually kind of like a 0 for 5 go again, because Viserai makes Rune Charm when you play it.
Yep.
Really, really, really powerful. Any way that Viserai has to extend his turns, and especially extend his turns for free, really good.
Cool, okay, so that's kind of the main board and like the highlight cards there. What we got in the sideboard that we need to be focusing on? I mean, we've got the Runic Reclamations and we've got Amplify the Arknights. What's your standouts here?
The main thing that changed from Dromite going to Prism's rise in popularity is 6 isn't a popper anymore, guys. Well, it's not a reliable popper anymore. Yeah. So as you can see, I've got the third Amplify the Arknight in the sideboard for... it is a popper. It comes up that it is a popper. So I bring that up to 3 when I play against Prism, and I also add in the other 2 Ninth Blades and the 3 Runic Reclamations. That makes my above 6 popper count 6 and my popper count 9, which is good numbers. I side out things like the Sonata Galaxias for not Sonata Galaxias, the Sonata Arcanics for this, because I'm siding in a load of attacks.
Yep.
So my attack and non-attack action ratio is completely thrown off. If you don't get to pop with Runic Reclamation, playing it on the offensive is actually really silly, because they're forced to block it, otherwise you destroy an aura they control. And if they have a Genesis, Merciful Ret, etc. out, it's pretty damn good. But yeah, it being a 7, and it being a 7 that blocks 3 is also good, because if you get Celestial Reprimanded, it still blocks for 3, whereas a lot of the other 7 options in the game are 2 blocks.
So you've got 3 amplifiers for the air quotes poppers. You've got the Runic Reclamations for the definite poppers, and then you've got the Ninth Blade for the Jesus Christ, this is never not popping, essentially. Cool. Yeah, love it. I'm here for
There's
it.
also just a couple of other cards. So as you see, I mentioned earlier that you sometimes side in 1 Read the Runes. There's 3 Read the Runes in the sideboard.
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
A Blessing of Occult and a second Sonata Galaxia. These cards are for if decks really, really, really want to fatigue you and really want to block you. You can bring this stuff in just as saying, like, I am going to set up, I am going to have a turn that pushes 25 plus damage because I spent a turn making a stack of 5-6 rune chants, and then I'm going to start like a Mordred type turtle or something like that. Blessing of Occult is notably another target for Sonata Galaxia, which gives us enough reason to bring in a second one.
Nice.
And you can put Blessing of Occult into the arena with Go Again if Sonata Galaxia has X equals 2, which is relevant.
It does indeed. That is relevant because of your stupid creepers plays. Nice. Okay. Anything else on the list before we move over to the game?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Let's set some stuff up and swap on over.
Well, I'll kind of start by doing a quick overview about the Viserai Kayo matchup. I actually played it 3 times in my 8 games on Saturday. So I had Kayo in round 2, this Kayo in round 4, and then Francesco again in the quarterfinals of the top 8. I do think it's a pretty good matchup. I think it's a bit volatile based on the dice roll. The key thing to note in this matchup that I think is really important is how you use Balance of Justice. I think there is potential to really use Balance of Justice aggressively rather than just using it to draw an extra blocking card. You do not block very well, so your cards are much better used offensively. So I quite often try and use Balance of Justice to make a 5-card hand a 6-card hand. In this game, you'll see how it comes up. But yeah. Notably, I won the dice roll this game, so I opted to go second, bringing in that Rattlebones and getting the opportunity to block with the Swarming Gloomveil here.
Is it just KO that you want to go second into, or what lists and what decks are you trying to go second? Is it every single matchup if you win the dice roll?
No, I think you're quite happy to go. I think one benefit of Viserai at the moment is the ability to go first or second. I think a lot of aggro decks do want to go second. I would definitely take second into a deck like Lebia. I would take first from Bolton because he wants to go first. But in a lot of aggro mirrors, I'm pretty happy with either way how the dice roll goes, to be honest.
Nice. Little bit of a glare at the bottom of the screen. Apologies about that. Our setup was great, but also you need light. What equipment do we have running? So we've got the Balance Justice, we've got the Creepers. What's your arms and chest in this matchup?
I'm on Grasp for the block value.
Yep.
And Aether Army for the potential to push turns over and above.
Nice and simple.
Yeah, so here it's my opponent went first and unfortunately didn't draw an Agile Mighty Wind-Up or a Cast Bones, which was good for us. So we sort of start going second with a reasonable aggressive hand. Morbid Skies takes blocks, like whatever deck you're against, like that no one can really afford to let Morph hit. Plus Meet and Greet makes your enchant on hit as well. So we get an armor pretty early here from Kayo, but he is setting up an agility and a might. So
just
happy to get armor, but potentially concerned on the clapback. Pretty poor clashing in Viserai. Got a couple of sixes and one ninth blade.
I was about to say, you telling me that ninth blade isn't winning multiple clashes? That's crazy.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but
dream. Really nice kind of opening turn from you here, though, right? A bit of damage on the Meet and Greet, getting some equipment, and then being able to return the Revel and the Sword, coming in for what is 9 split damage here. Notably as well, Francesco, if you have a quick look at the top of your screen, there's no AB here. So this is just 6 pure damage that he's not going to be able to do anything against.
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult for Kayo to argue to play Norin. Scabs gets you out of trouble. Norin probably isn't worth 5 like your arm slot is, plus you have the Morph Skies on hit, so you do kind of want the armor. I don't necessarily think it's wrong to not play Norin into Viserai. I think you just do end up in a bit of trouble if your Viserai opponent resolves more than one Revel in the game.
That's foreshadowing.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit, but
so as someone who plays not KO but like Brutes historically, is there an argument to lose your chess piece to be able to have Null Rune here instead of running Tunic, or is Tunic just too damn good in these like aggro decks who want to afford to just be able to swing hard and use that resource as best as possible?
I think it's quite. I think Tunic is very important to KO because of being able to do things like Wild Ride, Bare Fangs, or two cost cards off of 1 blue.
Yeah.
Helps you get claws in and things like that. But to know, I think we may see this matchup become a little bit worse when, is it called Savage Sash?
The new chess piece. Yeah.
Yeah, so that card's going to be pretty nasty to play against, just because it's going to give them 3 block equipment, another 3 block piece of equipment if they decide to block with it, freeing up potentially a slot for Norin, or they just go super heavy on the armor. And the game is quick, right? So there's no real need to run Tunic. You're not going to get that many resources off of it. Yeah. So the ceiling for Sash is pretty high.
Talk to me about Deathly Duet. Obviously, you're only running 3 of this card, only in the red variant, but it certainly felt like the flexibility of this card is a little bit crazy. Being able to get multiple different effects depending on what you pitch for it. We're seeing a lot of these cards come out now.
Yeah, so really nicely in this game, if I get to pitch a non-attack action for it, it just creates 2 unblockable damage.
Yeah.
The 4 does make it easier to block with armor. So I don't particularly like pitching non-attack actions into like Dynamo decks.
Yeah.
I'd much rather make it 6 and ask them to give me 2 cards. But yeah, the card's really good. I think the blue Shrill does edge out the blue Deathly Duet, just because of the 5 being a bit more of an awkward breakpoint against, like say, 3 block on a Dynamo. You're still not covering up the Morph Skies on hit. So this turn, me and Francesco have been sort of trading life evenly, and he gets a Blood Rush here, hitting a Beast Within, which is pretty scary for me. Now I'm looking to cash in on the Balance of Justice to make my hand bigger, which would have been nice if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure Francesco plays a CNC against me here. So here you can see the Tunic being floated and a red being pitched and the CNC coming in. Arsenal pretty important for Viserai, trying to play bigger hands as possible.
Yep.
So I crack the balance in response to this to still try and play a 4-card hand into the destruction of the CNC. Fortunately, I have 2 reasonable 3 blocks, and I'm only 5 life down going into this turn with a 4-card hand. So I'm seeing 1 Blood Rush used. At this point, I'm still not sure if he's on Cast Bones. I know some of the Kayo decks aren't all on Cast Bones.
Which on paper seems like a bad thing, like that the Kayo's aren't running it, but also understanding that everyone wants to try something different. That card does just seem very good though. Especially with Kayo.
I think some of the Kayos are sort of opting to give it up because sometimes it can just
end your turn, right?
Can
like
just,
you just have to
forfeit a little bit of momentum.
Yeah.
But the card is still very, very powerful.
Absolutely. Cool. So we go into this next turn. What are you? So
I'm playing a 4-card hand here.
Yeah.
With the Arsenal. So I'm playing a Deathly Duet, no non-attack action beforehand. This Deathly Duet doesn't have go again. Notably floating 1 here. I am trying to bait the flesh bag a little bit. However, I don't think flesh bagging is necessarily correct here if you're reading that I have a Creepers line. Bit of a, like I say, bit of a strange line for Viserai to take if you're not super familiar with what he's doing, which is why I think you see Francesco checking the graveyard here, trying to figure out what's going on.
It's like, wait a minute, what's happening there? It's good though, like you thinking about that and like playing into that mind games element of do something, like I've got a card in hand, you have a card which stops me from using the card in hand with like the largest air quotes known to man, right? Yeah, quite an interesting thought process here from Francesco. I think it goes on for a little bit. So
yeah, it's a difficult decision to make. I think I would I think it's a reasonable flesh bag if you're predicting the creepers, just because that card in my hand could be a big turn extender.
Yeah.
Or if the card in my arsenal, which I would creepers, cost resources, then you would want to take the pitch card out of my hand. But obviously, creepers being instants means that I can respond to the intimidate trigger on the flesh bag.
Absolutely.
So at this point, I play a Sonata at instant speed. This is effectively just to get my action point back. It hitting does mean I deal 1 arcane damage to Francesco. And as Fleshbag resolves, the Shrill that I get off the Sonata will be intimidated, but that's a pretty good card to go in my arsenal. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've effectively eked out 1 additional damage here. You give yourself a resource, you give yourself an action point, and you've been able to reset your arsenal. I can't remember what happens here, but the fact that...
So I also do not have to think about Fleshbag for the rest of the game.
No, exactly. That's important.
Which is really, really, really powerful. This is one of the rare times. So I'm actually, notably as I've played an attack action and a non-attack action, now I can crack my Aether Iron Weave. You do not always get 2 resources worth of value off the Aether Iron Weave. Okay. But here I do, because I have a Runeblood Incantation in my arsenal. Making a Rune Trunks, I played another non-attack action.
Yeah.
And coming in for 6. So this turn I've done 11 damage, resetting my arsenal and getting Fleshbag. Pretty big turn for me. And setting up an incantation on the board, which makes all of your turns from this point forward that little bit smoother. So if you can get the space to play out something like an incantation, even in like an aggro mirror, it's like it's like a 1 for 3 go again, but it does a lot of things that you wouldn't really normally consider. Like it makes your Drawn for the Dark Dimensions cheaper, it makes your Rune Flashes cheaper,
yeah, all
that sort of stuff. Starting the turn with Wandering Tron is really powerful.
It's almost in this deck a bit like a Vigor, where like you're just getting them for multiple turns because of those cards which just read, if you have Rune Chant, Teehee, I cost 1 less. And then we've seen plenty of times in the past, and actually, yeah, you've got a Rune Flash in your hand as well. So the fact that you've been afforded the opportunity for that, and whatever else you want to do also, is pretty damn
so this
good.
is
Center coming in an interesting decision point there, right?
Yeah, so I've not really had Center played against me very much. My hand's not very good here because I have I'm pretty sure I have 4 attack action cards.
Yeah, you had a drawn and Rune Flash that you blocked there.
Yeah, and then I keep a blue and a Rune Flash, I think. So I blocked the Center because I'm not really sure what he could name. I'm assuming it would be Morvenant Skies, but kind of happy to block the Center there and just play my 2-card hand. Do get a little bit punished because there's a cast bones and I'm not returning too much, but this is what I think Kayo players are sort of considering is if you note that Francesco's 6 life down here and then playing the cast bones doesn't present any damage, so I remain 6 life up going into my next aggressive turn, unless Francesco's following turn is super explosive, I'm pretty happy to not be attacked again.
Yeah, I mean, if that's like, worst case scenario, he has a blue and a swing big and then just chucks that at you instead of playing cast bones, then that is doing more damage. Of course, not having an arsenal and him kind of hoping that ripping those 2 cards out of your hand means you're going to be going a little bit slower here. Evidently not the case, as we see another Rune Flash come out with an arcane damage that he can't block.
Yeah, so I do get a 2-card 8, which is kind of rare for Viserai. It kind of only really does damage when he gets to keep more cards, but I get to do, because of the incantation like we spoke about, I get to pay 2 for my Rune Flash rather than 3, meaning I get to swing the sword as well. So pretty critical turn for Kayo here because of it's the payoff for the cast bones. I think I get a bit lucky here, so I make him discard a swing big.
Oh.
The rest of the turn is still pretty good.
This is Savage Feast for 12 go again, currently.
It is, yeah. I do have an 11-point life lead, so one of Viserai's favourite 2 words. I'm going to say no blocks to this one. Not presenting any disruption.
The classic no blocks any reactions to a 12 damage attack and just being like, wait, hold up.
I'm gonna eat this. I remember my hand's pretty good here. So
this is on paper looks like a really scary turn, right? So we've come in with a 12 damage Savage Feast, then a 3 with the swing of the claw, and then a pulping coming in. This is dominate, right?
Yep. So this is a 21 damage turn, I believe, for my life total of 24 at the beginning of the turn.
Yeah, pretty spooky.
I want to stay on the aggressive here. Francesco's not made an agility this turn, so my assumption is that the following turn is not going to be quite as explosive.
Yep.
Obviously, there's no cast bones as well. I give some armor. I think the game's going to be over pretty soon, so I want to make sure I get the value out of my grasp. Another thing to note about the Rune Blood Incantation is last turn, because it made a rune chant, it helped me keep my creepers around, because otherwise I would not have been able to deal any arcane damage. So I'm dropping a 5 here. I'm basically accepting I would need to rip as many cards out of Francesco's hand as possible at this point.
Yep.
Otherwise, if I let him keep too many, I'm going to have to start blocking. And as I mentioned earlier, Viserai does not do well when he has to start blocking.
No, and with you on 5 HP as well, with the might on his side, there's a breakpoint coming. Almost no matter what, there's going to be a 4 or a 7 chucked at you. So you just need to force as much damage as possible to be able to just cause havoc, cause a bit of disruption. Honestly, this is a great way to start it. G-Tome into drawing a card, into Morvenant Skies, into a Shrill. So really pumping that damage, coming in for, what's this, 7 and 2?
If you remember, this is the Shrill that we got off the Sonata from a couple of turns ago, that we played at instant speed. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there is not a deck in the game that can really afford to let Morvenant Skies hit, because then you become one of the most above rate decks in the game. Bit of a atypical Viserai turn here, going more Shrill into Shrill. Usually you see the sword. I'm just trying to get as many cards as possible here.
Yep.
And again, something to note, if you swing the sword, you don't make a rune chant. you are not playing a Runeblade card. So swinging the Shrill here means that I start my next turn with 2 Rune Chants because of the incantation. And I am really, really banking on arcane damage to sort of get me to the end of this game.
So your opponent's on 8, you're on 5, you've got a claw coming at you for 4, knowing that Reckless Swing is in these decks. Do you play around it? I mean, as a brute player, historically, I know what happens, but also, like, would you ever think about playing around Reckless Swing, or have we reached that point where it's like, look, just have it and it is what it is?
Yeah. So my decision here is exclusively based on Reckless Swing, and I'm thinking about giving a card to block, but my hand kind of doesn't really function with only 3 cards, or it doesn't function anywhere near as well. The other alternative is I give my last 2 points of armor on the Grasp and the Creepers, but my hand also doesn't function without Creepers. So I'm sort of banked into a position here where I remember I audibly said to Francesco, so I said, if you have it, you have it. I have to go to 2 here. I need to keep the Creepers around.
So going to 2,
like, again, it is a long decision because
it has to be, right? You don't want to just throw it away towards the end of the game, considering like you've been in the driver's seat for a strong majority. The reason you've got to this point is because you've almost allowed the damage to come at you, especially off the back of that. What was it, like 21 damage turn or something like that he had off the Cast Bones and then the 3 chain links. So going to 2, you are indeed in Reckless Swing range, but you're starting the turn off with 2 Rune Chants with a 4-card hand, and a Drawn comes out costing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so this is, as I said about being able to play more cards in Viserai means doing more, specifically arcane damage, because the more cards you play, the more Rune Chants you make. My theory here is I have 8 arcane damage left to do to get him to 0. I Sonata I Creepers in a Sonata to get my action point back. It hits, so I do 1 more arcane damage, and I know what's in my hand, and there is no stopping the
absolute
Revel in Runeblood.
Yep. Revel in
Runeblood closes this game off. Even more disgusting, me drawing a Rune Flash off the Sonata. But yeah, so this is kind of an example of how Viserai can play into Kayo. You do have the opportunity. You do have the ability to brick. So does Kayo to an extent, and you have slightly less. I don't know if you'd call Mordred Tired Revel probably the comparison to their Cast Bones Blood Rush, so you have sort of like equivalent power cards.
Yeah.
But Spellbound Creepers giving you the ability to turn even some of the clunkier hands into wider turns really allows you to keep up with Kayo.
Yeah, from the games that I was watching you play over the weekend, Spellbound Creepers certainly an MVP. That card is so powerful. Allowing you to open up all of these turns, being able to lead with cards which seem like they're suboptimal, but then gain an action point. Drawn from Dark Dimension springs to mind. The fact that says draw a card, and then you just go, by the way, Creepers, paying my 0 cost to be able to get myself an action point is okay. You've paid 1 resource for an action point, which is really good. It's really good, and also you've got the effect of the card that you just played. It all stacks on top of each other, and Creepers allowing you to do that is strong.
I'd definitely say the ratio of games I play or use the ability on Creepers to how many games you win goes up. So I think there was a couple of games that I resolved Creepers more than once. Specifically that game there, it was used for the 2nd time on the final turn, and in my finals game I used it twice as well. It's just such a powerful card, and it really allows you to extend further. And again, like you said, Drawn from the Dark Dimension, more cards equals more damage in Viserai. So
there we go. That's the title. More cards equals more damage. Callum, thanks for joining us again, dude. As always, we're pumping out content, and as Callum mentioned, that finals game, we are going to be doing some post-game commentary on the top 8, top 4, and finals of that ProQuest. Along with, we are going to be recording our local ProQuest at Dice and Destiny this weekend for content, hopefully, depending on my schedule, next week. when we'll get that out the door with a little bit of commentary as well. So more games, more content to come. Final thoughts, Callum? Anything you want the people at home to know about?
Yeah, I'm gutted I can't play at Dice and Destiny this weekend. Good luck to all you guys. Bring another one home, that would be nice.
I mean, thank you for this as well, by the way. As an Azalea player, I've scammed Callum of the new Azalea map for the ProQuest season. So
Had to bring it home
we
for the
take those.
gang.
Hell yeah. Right, guys, we're gonna chuck it away for now. We will see you very, very shortly. Thanks for tuning in. Have a lovely rest of your day. Peace.